Bullock, turn me up.
Yo, welcome back to another episode of the Merry Bunch podcast. My name is Chris.
Crystal.
Nico.
Brianna.
William.
Keonda.
And we are the bunch. All right, we all know conquering any milestone in marriage is a blessing, but to hit 20 years and counting is no easy task. The bunch is going to sit down with ministers, authors, and marriage counselors Kevin and Jess Bullock to discuss the secret to a loving and fulfilled marriage. So what's going on, man? Kev, Jess?
What's going
How y'all
on?
doing?
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So how everything been, man?
Everything's been good, man. Just living this thing called life, this married life, and enjoying every bit of it.
Hey, that's what's up, man. I remember me and Kev, we met through Rashawn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on our podcast, the Betterment podcast.
Yeah.
Dropped a lot of jewels. I never met your wife before, though.
Yes.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you all.
It's nice
Yes.
to meet you
Yes.
too. Yeah. Now you're gonna really get gems now.
No. You got the gems.
Yeah, me and Kev, we also touched bases on the housing when we was looking for a house at the time.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, you really gave me some jewels in that area too. So it's good to see you, man.
Definitely, man. It's good to see you're still in this space. You know, I remember the Betterment podcast and definitely had a good time there, and to see you, evolve over to this side with other couples. Definitely excited to be here.
Same here, man. Feeling is mutual. All right, man. So let's get into it. I know y'all ready.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, so let's get into it. How long have you been married?
So October 23rd will be 20 years that we've been married. So it feels like we're the elders in most of our circles.
It took a long time to get here.
But yeah, it's been almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Long
It's a
time.
long time.
Yes.
We trying to
We trying.
trying to get there.
What are the years here?
Need all the men to answer.
Yeah. October will be 5.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, September to be 6.
Wow.
In October, it'll be 7.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Okay.
I feel old.
You see how all the whites looked at us?
Better not mess this up.
I had to pause for a second.
All right, man. So, what's the story? How did you meet?
So you want my story, her story, or the truth? Which one?
It's always 3 sides.
It's always 3 sides. I'll tell this story. So we had a mutual friend that grew up in the same area that we grew up, and it's funny because making a long story long, we actually grew up right down the street from each other and never knew it.
Oh, wow.
Never saw each other.
Never.
Her and her mother were counselors at the park, literally
Every
block
summer.
away from my house. But I guess God just had
Hit
covers
us.
over our eyes
Yeah.
and hit us. But we had a mutual friend from the neighborhood that I used to roll with. And when I kind of changed my life and started doing the right thing, he introduced me to Jess. And he was like, he was Muslim. And he would say, I need to introduce you to Jess because she's into that Jesus thing like you. Right? And so he connected us. She was a freshman at Montclair State at the time. And so we actually met on a blind date. And he was persistent.
Yeah.
I got to say that. He was very persistent because, I was at that time, I wasn't the type to really chase girls. So if I try once and it didn't work, I'm moving on to the next. And so I had called her and, she didn't answer, so I threw a number away. And he was like, did you talk to her? And I'm like, nah, she didn't pick up. He was like, you got to call her. So he ended up putting us on three-way.
Back in the day.
And
He was determined.
yeah, he was determined. And, we connected on the phone.
We talked for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
That
wow.
rest
Yeah.
that first night.
That's when she fell in love right there.
I was like, he got a job? And a car. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, where your standards at? But she was a freshman in college, and I was a little bit older, so I was working. I had my own car. Was actually back in school at that time, but going to school at night, and so it was like a literal blind date. This is before
Tinder.
the technology we have now with cell phones and all that stuff.
Right.
So I drove up to Montclair, didn't know what she was gonna look like,
Same.
and a couple people walked past me in the dorm, and I was a little nervous, But when she came down, I was pleasantly surprised, and it's been a wrap since then.
Yeah, ever since.
Yeah, we dated for 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then this should be 20 years married.
Yeah.
What's up?
So 25 years together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Stretch. So does his storyline, everything line up?
Yeah, it lines up. So truth be told, I didn't want to talk to any of my friend Tariq's friends. So when Tariq was calling me, I was like, Tariq ain't about nothing. He out here trying to. So that's the real reason why I wasn't picking up the phone for Kevin. But I'm glad that he forced this to happen. He was like, we gonna get them on the phone. But the story does line up. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So that's the truth.
All right. So were you were either of you in any serious relationships prior to you guys meeting?
Not really. Right? We were young.
I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah, and when I met, I had just turned 20. So I didn't know she was 17. I wasn't. But she was in college. I'm assuming she at least 18.
My birthday, I got skipped the grade.
But yeah, no. So like I said, my boy saw the change. So I had really started going back to church. I was trying to do the right thing. I was trying to leave girls alone. They would get me in trouble. So I was like, I need to leave the females alone. So wasn't really in no serious relationships or anything like that. So.
Yep. So lock them down real quick.
Real quick. All right. So what made you all fall in love after linking up?
You want to take this? Or?
Yeah. You know what? I think it was the similarities.
Okay.
I mean, we didn't put on any airs in our first date. So like I was literally sliding down the side of the on the side of my of the car, cracking up laughing. I mean, he was talking about his father was a pastor, my father was a pastor, and we were both children of ministry, and so we just had so many similar stories. And so that first night felt like we had known each other forever. And I think all the similarities kind of gelled us together. And I think falling in love is kind of like something that happens over time. It's progressive, like it gets deeper and deeper. So you start falling in love with people for different reasons. And then and it just gets more and more exaggerated as time goes by. So I think we just started falling in love initially because of similarities.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Agree with that?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. So did you realize right away that you wanted to get married?
No, not right away, but I knew fairly quickly that she was going to be the one I was going to marry.
Okay.
Right. So, like I said, at this time, I'm 20. I knew that I wanted to be married, and I knew that I probably needed to be married. Right. And then when I met Jess, and like she said, the similarities we had with our families and our upbringing, I knew that she was the one that I could marry. You know what I mean? And that was important for me. So I kind of knew that early on that this is probably going to be the one, but it wasn't. I was willing to take my time because I wasn't doing this more than once.
Right.
So,
All right.
I don't got nothing to say on that. This is it. I'm like, ain't nothing else after this.
So how far in was you thinking that way? How far in a relationship?
I would say probably within the first year.
Okay.
Right. So we started dating in December 1999.
Before text message.
Yeah. Don't date us too much. It's funny. My kids always they say, what kind of phone you had? So I don't know if y'all remember, I had the Nextel. With the church. So I just chirp and be like,
I'll be in chemistry class.
I'm in class. But yeah, so I would say within the year I kind of knew that, and then there was an incident that happened. I would say, when was that?
Probably like 8 months in.
8 months in, we were driving, and we're originally from Jersey, so we was in a city called Perth Amboy, and we was driving, and a car decided to do an illegal U-turn right in the middle of the street, and hit us head on. And in my mind, I saw Jess hit the dashboard, but it was almost like she went through the windshield. Like I everything happened so fast, and it was at that moment like I was scared that I could lose her. That's why I was like, oh, I can't lose her. Right, so that incident is really what. Yeah, it was the wreck. It was the wreck.
Then he knew.
Yeah, I know.
Hit him.
I'm like, I don't know if I want to live without her.
Too close.
I'm a little too close. Yeah. But that incident, and I told her that incident really let me know that, you know what, I want to make us exclusive, official, like. This is us.
Okay.
What's up?
That's great.
Yeah, man. All right. So, what are some qualities that you admire about each other?
I admire Kevin's patience. I think that his patience goes a long way. And I think when you're in a relationship, you need to have patience with one another. And he doesn't like to be mad for long. So I appreciate that, because then it makes all the quarrels really short. But yeah, his patience, he's just really patient. And I know I could get impatient, very impatient. And so it kind of balances us. So I really appreciate it. And I appreciate his integrity, because when we go out, he's not being somebody else. He's just who he is everywhere. So I don't have to worry about covering him up, because he's just Kev everywhere. So I really admire that. I admire that.
That's good.
What's up?
Yeah, and with Jess, I admire her work ethic. I don't have a lazy wife.
Sure don't.
I'm a lazy wife. I mean, she's an excellent wife. She's an excellent daughter. I see how she's, we have, aging parents. So, we're in that stage of our lives where we're kind of caring for our children, and we got to, take care of our parents to some regard. She's a phenomenal mother. She's working. She has her own business. We have our partnerships and stuff that we do together. She's almost finished with her doctoral program.
Nice.
And so, yeah, she's about to be Dr. Babe. Right?
Good t-shirt.
And she does it. She makes it look easy. Right, there are moments, right? Obviously, you can tell that the day is wearing on her, right? But just on a day-to-day basis, she's never, she's never willing to just give one up, right? So I appreciate the level of work that she has and her ability to love through all of that.
I'm going to be playing this back like a couple times a week.
That's good.
All right, Kel. So you ready for this one, man? Who said "I love you" first?
That was me. That was me. And I had never used that word at all. Everybody I talked to, dated, whatever, I never used that word. To me, that word is very, very special. And I never wanted to, just like who I am is who I am. So I never wanted to put out something and then couldn't stick to it or whatever. But I knew, like I said, the more we got to know each other, and then that incident happened, I said it first. I was the one.
Okay.
I refused.
So how did you feel when he said it?
I was overwhelmed. I was actually, because I didn't think he was going to say it. I knew we felt it. You know how you feel it, but in the back of my head, I had my dad's voice, like, don't you let him make you a fool. So I'm like, I ain't saying this first. So I think it was my I think that my pride kept me from saying that, but I felt it before he said it. But I I think relieved that you like, I'm not wasting my time. I was relieved.
So did you say it back?
I sure did. I ain't gonna leave him hanging now. Right, thanks, babe.
You alright?
Oh my gosh.
So, how long did you guys date before you became engaged or married?
So we dated for 5 years. Like I said, when I met her, she was a freshman in college, and so she definitely had to finish that. And we were, like I said, we were young, so I was just getting started in my career. Actually, I wasn't even in my career when we first started. I was working nights, so before we got married, we had to make sure at least some type of income was going to be stable and things like that. And she was still in school, and just still figuring out life. That's young. 2018. That's real young. Yeah. So 5 years we dated, and then we got engaged in 2003, and then we had a 1 year engagement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a 1 year engagement.
Okay. Quick question, because this question actually comes up a lot. Do you think it should be a time frame on when to propose?
Me personally, I don't think there is a time frame. I think when you know. So I think it's going to be different for everybody, different circumstances. Some people are into all the money, the lavish wedding. I mean, please, we can go back in time. We would have had no wedding. Probably would have just went to the justice to the peace. You're just throwing a party for everybody else, and you don't even make your money back. So the way we think about money now is completely different than it was in 1999, 2000. But I think it really depended on the people. Some people, we know a couple, they didn't even wait a whole year. They knew it like 6 months in, got married, and it was kind of like a quiet wedding. But I think it depends on the person, and when you know, you know.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Right. Agree.
So let me ask you this: say a couple been together 10 years, no thought about marriage, or no sign of proposal. Like, what do you think about that?
I think you gotta find out the history of the individuals, right?
Right.
Why aren't they maybe looking to go into marriage? I think if you have somebody that's been dating, they're especially if they're like living together and they've been together for 10 years, that's a long time. You basically are married. So my question would be, what is your knowledge of what marriage really is?
Right.
What have you seen that's maybe keeping you from putting the title on it? Because that's really what it comes down to. I think some people are just afraid of the title. And so that would be my question. It's hard to just say this is wrong, this is right, without actually knowing the background of the individual. And that's something that I've learned from Jess just through what she does, is you got to ask the right questions, because you may find out, what they saw in marriage is just something they don't want. Now, they love the individual, but that term marriage just has a negative connotation for them. And so I think it's something that you got to have that type of conversation. And then hopefully maybe through some knowledge and maybe through some counsel, maybe they can make that official, because there are some benefits to marriage beyond just the title. But I think you would probably need to ask some questions to find out, why have you gone this long without actually, putting a ring on it.
Right. Hey, man, that's real.
Yeah. Do you feel like, oh, my bad, Chris.
Nah, go ahead.
Do you feel like, okay, so say it's the man who doesn't want to, or he hasn't proposed. As for the woman, is there any type of things that she needs to look for? Is there a time frame that she should kind of bow out? I understand like having the conversations and stuff like that, but after 10 years, what do you think for that female? I mean,
so, and this goes back to what was Kevin saying. If a female came to me and she said, Jess, I really want to get married, but there's a man, I'm in love with him, but it's been 10 years and he won't propose, then I would ask her, well, what are her values? So her values need to align with where she's at in life. If her value is to start a family, what time is ticking, and you really want to get on with your values, and that means a lot to your livelihood, then you have to do what falls in line with your values. If my value is God, having a family, having grandchildren, seeing them grow up, and then having a business, and you're like, nah, don't want to do the marriage thing, not sure about the kids, you don't align with my values. I don't even know if we are a good fit anymore. So my question to her would be, what are your values and where do they lie?
Right.
That's
good
That's
answer.
good.
For sure. All right. So, did y'all live together before
My daddy
marriage?
wouldn't let me.
I'm about to say you don't know Al
Albert was not letting that happen.
or Sheila. My mother wouldn't have it either.
What? Your mom? No.
So, do you think not living together? Do you think that was beneficial for y'all?
Absolutely. I think it was, we were learning each other. And then, when you get married, you see things you don't see when you're dating. Or you start living together, you see things you don't see when you're dating. And I'm like, bro, that's not going to work here, and same. He was like, what? Why would you throw my shoes away? Like, it was just like a whole hot mess. And
that's a true story.
it was, I think it's fun to wait because there's so much to learn. And when you're committed to somebody that I'm letting you in, I feel like a home, your house, your space it's like your safe place. And I don't want to build that with somebody that I don't have a commitment with, and like, I know we in this together. So me personally, I think waiting just kind of allows you to really be free and have liberty and really exploring what does life look like when we come together. But there are benefits that people have found to getting together, before marriage, that they're like, I can't do this. And their past can speak to that. So I don't think that there's a right or wrong. Me personally, I do believe that, waiting probably be the best option. But I've seen lots of successful, marriages even when they didn't wait. So
Yeah, it can go either way, depending on the person. I'm more leaning towards waiting because I think that when you do live together, if it doesn't work out and now you do find the person you work out, now you're going in with different expectations and it's like, well, this is how it was before. And sometimes, experience can prevent you from having true experiences with your partner, or you can have delayed gratification because the first couple of years or months or whatever was spent dealing with, well, this is how it used to be. And so you can eliminate all of that if you wait, I think.
Yeah.
Statistically, research does speak to the fact that couples that cohabit before marriage do have a little bit more trouble than those who don't. It's just statistics. And so there's just, like to Kevin's point, there's just things that just have to be additionally worked through. So you kind of also save yourself some extra baggage when you are when you do wait. You kind of, wait till that ring is on your finger.
All right. So, are there any couples that you guys admire, and what do you respect about their marriage?
There's a few. I think we admire both our parents. Like, both our parents been married over 40 years each. And we really admire our leaders' marriage.
Our spiritual leaders.
Bishop Wilson and Dr. Lady Mia. But I think if I had to pick one, it would probably be my aunt and uncle, Sharon and Cleavon May. Okay. They live down here. Their lives are just amazing. So he's a pastor, but what I admire about them is the balance that he has between life and ministry. And you don't see that a lot. A lot of times there's an imbalance, right? And so Uncle Cleavon and Sharon, they're there for everyone. I mean, they're at every function. They're always giving.
Traveling
Their
around.
house is always open, but they travel. Like they'll be gone. You know what I mean?
We're in London.
And I admire that they're traveling and doing what they enjoy
life.
doing.
Yeah.
But still have ministry at the forefront, still, there for their family, for their kids. And I mean, been very instrumental,
Yeah.
and that's when we moved down. So I think it would be them. And listen, they love each other.
They do.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's great.
I admired him too.
All right, so in being premarital counselors, did you guys partake in any counseling?
Yeah,
yourself?
yeah, we had to. So
Okay.
it was a requirement for our pastors to have premarital counseling. I do understand now that was actually a advantage for us because a lot of people don't make that a mandatory thing anymore. But yeah, they made it mandatory for us to have that, and it was very beneficial. We used some of that stuff too. Those first couple of months.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think the benefit of the counseling is?
So I know when we do it, I tell them my job in this session is to break you up. That's my job. My job is we're supposed to have some conversations and have you really, dig deep and talk about things that otherwise you may not talk about. But it's gonna come up. If you're gonna get married and you're gonna be living together, eventually this is gonna come up. It's gonna show itself in some way, shape, or form. And so our job in premarital counseling is to find that, challenge it, let's talk about it, and then let's see if it's something that can be worked through. So you might be able to work through it, but you should work through it, some things prior to marriage. And then there's some things that you'll find out and you realize, you know what, this marriage thing isn't going to work for us. And so I think the benefit of that is, when you're dating, you're seeing the best of each other, right? You making sure, I'm making sure she's getting crisp Kev, you know what I mean? And I'm getting the best Jess. But then like Jess said, when you wake up and you realize, oh, your breath stink too. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like it gets real. You know what I mean? And then they're the values. A lot of times you don't get into that. You don't get into the true value. You're too busy going out to eat, bowling, skating, whatever it is that you guys do. And then when you get married and life starts lifing, now you're sitting there, you're like, who are you?
You ain't never tell me this.
Right. So in premarital counseling, true premarital counseling should go deeper than just, do you love her? Do you love him? When we do it, we go into communication, we go into finances, we go into trauma, past relationship trauma, intimacy, sex. We talk about it all because all of those factors are going to come into play in the relationship. And if you don't, one of the things that I always say, if I don't know that there's a pain point here, I might touch it, not realizing it's a pain point. But now, if we don't discuss it and talk about it, then I'm hurting her unintentionally, but I'm still hurting her. Eventually, she's gonna start letting me know, okay, this doesn't work for me, and vice versa. So we try to get that all out in the premarital sessions.
Okay,
That's good.
for sure. In those sessions, what's the, what would be your, I want to say, key jewels or advice or wisdom that you give inside those sessions?
That's a good question. Well, I know one thing we always say is when you are trying to resolve conflict, never attack the person, attack the problem. Because a lot of times you can go for the jugular and be like, well, that's why your left leg is shorter than your right, whatever. It don't got nothing to do with that. We talking about, time, and we're talking about, I don't feel like you spend enough time with me, or, I feel lonely. And we also tell them to use I feel statements. So like, rather than saying you, and backing a person up into the corner, if somebody say, Jess, you did, I'm going to be putting on some boxing gloves because I'm ready to come back at you. But when you say, like, for example, we use the water bottle thing. So Kevin drinks a lot of water, right? And there are a lot of water bottles on his side of the bed sometimes. So I'll say something like, instead of me saying, you always got water bottles on your side of the, I could be like, I feel very overwhelmed because every time I clean the room, I feel like I am taking an exorbitant amount of water bottles out of the room. Can you please help me? So I'm telling him I feel overwhelmed rather than saying, you can do better. You get, so try to use I feel statements. Stop attacking the person, attack the problem. And remember that, there's problems in relationships that there's another jewel we always give. There are some problems in your marriage that will be maintenance issues.
Yeah.
You're not going to solve every problem. So it's okay to go back to the same problem over and over. You're like, we can't fix this. This might not be for us. No, the oil needs to be changed again. It's not throw the whole car away. Right. Kevin gives a great analogy about a house having lights in it, and there's one room with a light bulb that just keeps going out. Well, you're not going to say this house is no good. You're going to go to the room, change the light bulb. So I think sometimes couples who are about to get married, they don't know that there are going to be problems in their marriage that they will constantly be revisiting to fix. Right. And that's okay. Doesn't mean your marriage is broken. Doesn't mean that we don't work in this area. It means we're going to have to keep working at it, and we might get tired sometime, and we might get frustrated, but we got to keep going at it.
Right. That's good. That's real good.
That maintenance analogy was
and I'm horrible at analogies.
But it's
that's real though.
It is real because sometimes, and I think there's a stat on that there are a lot of couples that they have the same issues over and over and over again. Right. And then sometimes they feel like, man, we just can't get this right. And then they throw the whole marriage away. When in actuality, you just got to be intentional, maybe a little bit more in that particular area. Right. So if the light bulbs went off in this, you wouldn't sell the house. Right. You would change the light bulb. Right. You would maybe go to the electrical switch and find out what's causing the light bulb to go out. Right. So, some things do require maintenance. And then, now I'm not gonna go into it, but we're very big on communication. And that's helped us. We talk about everything, and when I say everything, right? And the style in which you can receive communication, because a lot of times the problem with communication is that you think it's being had and it's not. It's a lot of talking going on, but it's not really communicating. Right? Communication is not happening. So we're very, very big on that.
Okay,
that's good.
All right, so how do you put God at the center of your relationship?
Intentionally. Like, we are intentional about our spiritual time, our worship time, our prayer time. We share scriptures with each other. We don't always, we're not perfect couple or anything like that, right? So we miss the mark sometimes, but we're intentional. We know when, okay, it's been a couple of days, we need to pray together. And so by doing that, I think that allows us to keep God the focus.
It's a little awkward at first to grab your partner's hand. I remember, when we started intentionally doing it, it's like, let's pray together. It's like, okay. Because you're so used to praying on your own. So you're like, so it's a little shorter than we were praying on our own. But I think that once you do it, for a while, it starts to become more comfortable. And sometimes Kevin will pray for me, and vice versa. We'll just, if something's going on. I remember my mom was going through some health issues, and I just woke up and I was just laying in bed, and I just felt his hand, and he said, "Father God, in the name of Jesus," and just went into prayer. He didn't know how anxious I was that morning. And I think having a partner who keeps God at the center helps you to remember to keep him at the center too. So praying, sometimes even just playing worship music in the house, just to keep the presence.
Right.
Okay. Describe each of your roles in the relationship. How did you come to have these roles?
So I would say, I think our roles started out more traditional in nature. And then they evolved into what it is now. So primarily I do all the cooking, and that's because at the time when that role reversed, Jess was working 2 jobs, and I wasn't gonna be the type of husband to have my wife working, come home for a quick break, go back to work, and in that little break, I'm like, "What you cooking?" Right? So I wasn't gonna be that guy. So I kind of stepped up in that role, but I developed a love for it. Like I love to cook. Like I cook for the expression. I want to see your face when you're eating the food, right? And that worked for her because Jess, now listen, she can burn. She used to make me dinner when I was working. We was dating, and I would come over, and so she can cook, but that's not her thing. Now she'll have your house spick and span though.
All clean.
So that works for us. So she clean. I don't have to do no dishes. I just gotta cook. And so in that regard, roles have maybe been a little bit reversed, but we both work. We both work full time. I don't think we have like gender type role. Like, yeah, I tried. I'm like, listen, I'm not gonna have my wife out there cutting the grass, but she like, I'm out there with my son, and then I turn around, I'm like, where your gloves? Oh, mommy got them. She on the side edging. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't have no gloves though.
I got plenty. You got plenty.
Yeah, so one thing I would say though is every house has their own roles. So whatever works for your house works for your house, and people might have things to say. So I know there were a couple people threw some shady comments like, "Oh, Kevin's cooking again." Yes, he is. He doesn't have to touch a toilet, a dish, nothing. But he enjoys cooking. I enjoy cleaning, and it works for our household. So one thing I would say, keep your stuff in your house, and people might have something to say. It doesn't matter what they say. You got your own roles in your home that works for you.
I remember somebody said, it was like, man, you're home a lot with the kids. And I'm
Are
like,
you okay?
I'm like, yeah. So what's your point?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because this is what
Works.
our house needed at the time, and it works. And then I remember when my career got off the ground, I told us, listen, you can quit the second job now. You know what I mean? But we worked together in that regard, and we did what we needed to do for the success of our family. Right. So, yeah, whatever it is for your household, that's what it is for your household.
Right.
That's right.
All right. So what do you see as strengths and weaknesses in your marriage?
I would say strengths. We work together really well. It doesn't matter if it's in business, ministry. It doesn't matter if it's with the kids. We don't cut each other in front of the kids. They know we one boss. You ain't gonna talk to one person, not the other. So I think we work very well together. I think a weakness would be making time to spend with each other, quality time where we're not working together, doing things like just quality time, like date nights. So we started doing date days. So like we'll go, like even if it's like sitting to a Bojangles parking lot and just get a 2-piece and be like, so what's going on? Or sometimes we'll go and have a sit down. Or if we had dinner and the kids are like our kids are older now, like we got one going to college. So we'll just go and say, hey guys, we'll be back. We'll go get ice cream and sit outside at an ice creamery or something. So like we have made time, but that's still a struggle for us.
So you said you were real big on communication. So what are your communication styles with each other, you would say?
So I'm not a big talker.
Nope.
Okay.
I think I need to listen to this.
I'm not a big talker. I'm the think, not that she's not a thinker, but I'm gonna analyze the situation, and when I talk, I want it to be impactful, meaningful, to the point. So I had to learn that sometimes you just need to talk things out. Like one of the issues that we had early on was, if we was going through something, in my mind, I'm just figuring it out. But I didn't know that she needed to know that I was thinking about it, trying to figure it out. And so my silence came across as an absence of care. Like, do you even care what's going on? Do you care that our light's about to be cut off? Do you care that the kids don't have lunch? Do you care? So, and in my mind, I'm like, I don't even know how you could ask that question. Like, obviously I care, but I was figuring it all out up here in my mind. And so I had to learn that, some things require a little bit more vocal communication. And so for me, I'm learning. I think I'm getting better.
Yeah, much better.
Yeah, right. And that, so Jess is a communicator. That's what she does by nature. You know, she's a clinical therapist, and so she's listening and communicating. And so I think for us, it's kind of being proactive too, right? We're really beyond that stage of things completely on fire, ablaze, and now we're trying to put the fire out. Like we've gotten to the point where we don't allow it to get to that point, right? We still have little brush fires that come up, but our recovery time has gotten a lot better because we're willing to start talking about it. And sometimes it's at great times, and other times it's like in the middle of the night. It's like, you up? Get up. We got to talk about this. But we don't allow the house to just go up in smoke.
I think also I had to learn that I'm a communicator. I'm very vocal. I want to know what's going on. What's the plan? I like to strategize. But Kevin needs time to think. So one thing I've learned is I have to wait for him to think through solutions and then come back to me with the plan. I have to trust that he'll come back, because it's hard to, and Kevin's also analytical, so I know I can't be emotional when I present to him. So I'm like, I've done PowerPoint presentations to explain things. I'm so serious. I have sent emails, like 4-page letters, and he'll reply, okay. And I'm like, oh my God. But when he comes back, he's thought through every point, and then he puts a bullet next to every single item. So learning how your spouse needs to take time also is important. I had to learn that caused a lot of conflict in the beginning. So I had to learn that he needs time to go back. But I told him, I said, even if you need that time, come back and tell me, hey, listen, I need a little bit more time to respond to you, but I heard you.
Yes. Right. And I think that's something that couples need to know. You have to teach the other person really how you communicate, how you need to be loved. Like it's a constant learning and teaching. We assume that they know, right? And so we had to learn, like, no, I need time to process this, right? And that was through a lot of trial and error, but we've come to the point where it's like, listen, this is what my process is, but I have to communicate that to her. So now she knows to give me space. And now I can't take advantage of that space. So I can't say, okay, she's giving me space, I'm just going to let this thing ride. You know what I mean? No, I got to honor and respect her, because that's really what it all comes down to. Our respect for each other is like, okay, she's giving me this space, so now I'm going to address this and get back to her in a timely manner.
Right.
Okay. Man, y'all kind of covered.
Yeah,
the
that's how we
next
resolve
two.
conflicts. Yeah.
Y'all covered the next two questions. Yeah. So I guess we can go to, what do you wish you would have done earlier in your relationship? And it, yeah.
I wish I would have bought some Apple stock. That's what I wish. And some Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think we would have been a little bit better in getting help with financial literacy. Right? We didn't know what we didn't know. And so sometimes when you're ignorant in the area, and I don't mean ignorant in a derogatory sense, but just in a lack of knowing, then you're not intentional about going after it, right? And then you're just kind of repeating behaviors that you've seen. And so you're just living life, and it's like, okay, we're barely making it, but this is what we know, right? And we're just surviving. And I think it's something that we could have done earlier. We would have been more intentional about getting insight and intel on how to handle and manage our finances better. Because we both were making decent money, but we will look at the end of the day and it's like,
where is it?
Where is it? You know what I mean? Like, we know we made it, but where is it? We had no accountability.
Right.
And so that's something I think if we would have done that early on in the marriage, it could have saved us a lot of headache, a lot of we never really argued about money, but just some spirited conversations.
Or silence.
Or silence. Yeah.
All right. So is that what you, well, I'm pretty sure y'all would recommend that to a couple that's just starting out. What else would you recommend to a couple that's starting out?
Finances, definitely. I think they should definitely talk about that. I would recommend talking about
major life areas
yeah.
together, like the premarital counseling. I can't stress enough how important premarital counseling with a licensed clinical therapist, how important that is to really dig into, because I didn't even know I had financial trauma until I was in the middle of it. So I some of the habits I formed, I brought into my marriage because of what I experienced myself. So you know, I would just strongly suggest you just have to go to premarital counseling and just put everything on the table. I mean, and learn how to save money.
Yeah, definitely.
And learn how to talk about it and learn how to ask for help.
Ask for help.
Ask for help.
Good.
Because I think
There you
that
go.
was part of my issue. Because I'm a mortgage banker by trade. So I'm looking at W-2s, bank statements. I'm helping people buy houses. But we're struggling. And I felt embarrassed that, you know, I couldn't provide that same type of, you know, information and resources for my own family. But we got to the point where it was like, this is not working for us. And I remember we hired a financial advisor, and he was like,
What y'all doing?
"What y'all doing?" Like, I remember the first time he said, "Show me your budget," and we listed all of our bills, and he was like, "All right, that's cool, but that's not a budget."
We didn't even know.
And I didn't even realize we had never budgeted before. You know, we just had an itemized list of our bills. And so he taught us how to actually put together a budget. And it was like eye-opening for us. And so, yeah, I definitely, you know, seek help, get help, don't have pride. You're a team, right? So everything we do, we're doing together.
All right. With that being said, do you think marriage is hard work?
Nah, this thing is easy. That's when you play that
That was a good answer. That was a good answer.
Nah, this not marriage is work, man. Marriage is hard work.
Even when you like your spouse.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who love each other don't like each other. We like each other and love each other, so and it's still hard.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you got two
What you say all
people.
the time? Marriage is for adults. Right?
Marriage is for it's not for the weak.
Not for the
Right.
It is not for the weak, right? You got two individuals that have come together from two different backgrounds, two different upbringings,
Yep.
right? Two different thoughts on the way life should go, and then you're like, okay, you're one. Right? Make that make sense, right? And so, no, it's hard. I remember we laughed, right? We used to laugh, and people were like, "Oh, marriage is hard work," and we're like, "What?"
We would get in a car like they don't love each
I
other.
don't love it. Right? But you're not.
Like they were right.
It comes down to, I remember somebody asked us, you know, what's the difference you think between you guys and maybe other couples? And I think we're intentional about our decisions. Like, this marriage is a choice.
Every day.
Every day, it's a choice. And we made the choice to love each other and to stick to our vows, right? Better or worse, sick or poor, right? We're going to choose each other. And that's the way it goes.
So do you think I know we're talking about marriage is hard work. Do you think for the listeners and people who are looking forward to being married, do you think that kind of scared them away from wanting to get married?
Choose your hard is what I say. There's this quote, and it says, you know, working is hard and being broke is hard. Choose your hard. And I say the same thing about marriage. You know, being single is hard and being married is hard. Choose your hard. So if you want to do something, you'll find a way, and if you don't, you'll find an excuse. So there's not. I think people just got to make a choice, you know. And if you find your best friend, then you don't want to be out of their sight. And I think it's just a choice.
Gotcha. All right. So what's the best thing about being married, and what have you learned from your spouse?
I think the best thing about being married is that you get to do this hard thing with someone else, right? So life is hard, marriage is hard, but I get to do it not alone, but I have somebody who has my back, right? Like Jess said, that there was a moment where I didn't even know what she was going through, how deep it was, but I just felt the need to pray for her. And she did the same thing. I had a deal I was working on, and I was venting, and then in the middle of my venting, she just started praying, right? And so I think the benefit of marriage, like the Bible said, he who finds a wife finds a good thing, right? And then we stop there, but the rest of it says, and obtains favor from the Lord, right? So I always say that my wife is not the good thing. The marriage is the good thing. Because my wife's not a thing, right? But our union allows us to obtain favor. And so the benefit to the marriage is the favor that we get when we do this thing together.
That's good.
It's a word, man.
That's good.
All right. How can you learn to adapt to your spouse changing throughout the marriage?
So I'm pretty sure all of us could say we're not the same person we were when we got married.
Absolutely.
And I think that we have committed ourselves to relearning who we are through each phase, through each life change. When our parents got sick, when children came, like, who are you now? Like, tell me something new about yourself. Like, I started liking olives 10 years in. I hated olives. You know, it's just things. And now I'm going through perimenopause, and it's women. We're gonna have another conversation about that. But it's adapting to that, adapting to the changes in your body. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like sweating so bad. I'm like about to pass out in the bed. And Kevin's like, oh my gosh, and it's just kind of like adapting to, you don't even move the same. Like, I don't know what happens to like your left knee after 40. it's life, when life changes. But I think the understanding, we are intentional about trying to understand each other in each phase. And so I think that's the best thing about adapting throughout the marriage. Just being, it's going to change. The marriage will change. The people in the marriage will change. But being committed to learning and understanding who these new versions are, we're going to continuously evolve to the day we leave.
Right. And I think it's important for those that are either looking to get married or that are married to understand that change is good, right? Change doesn't have to be a bad thing, right? So it's like, oh man, you're not the same person. Do you really want me to be the same Kev at 44 that I was at 24? Like, do you really want that, right? So I think sometimes we say things without really understanding what we're saying.
Right.
So I like the evolution and the change, but like Jess said, it's the communication through those changes and through those phases. So, we talk about the perimenopause and all that stuff. And I think there's more maybe physical changes that maybe happen with the woman's body than the man's, but men have their stuff too. And so we have to just talk about it so we understand. So it's not, the changes that's happening, it's not due to a lack of you wanting to be intimate or you wanted to go out or whatever. Cause like, you always used to want to have fun. Now you just want to sit home with, maybe a little older. We didn't have kids back then, So I think going through those changes doesn't have to necessarily be a bad thing, right? It's just adapting to it, understanding it, and doing it together.
That's right.
All right, so we're going to go into the next topic, family. Just what are some practical things for merging your life with, one dating or engaged? How can you guys merge your lives together before you actually get married?
I know I'm using this word a lot, but it's really just, it's talking and communicating, right? So when you're merging your lives together, what are your family dynamics? Right, I think that's a big one.
Yeah, definitely.
I know for me, I have a huge family. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I am not shy of cousins. I got cousins on top of cousins. Just not necessarily so much, right? Her family's a little bit more small, a little bit more intimate. But because I have a large family gatherings, family function, that was important for me. So that was something that I had to communicate with her and say, listen, I'm just letting you know, we have this thing every year we call the gap. When we have the gap, I'm gonna be with my cousins. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
So I need to make sure that you're cool with that, and she was right. So I think in the practicality, just kind of letting each other know what it is that you currently do now in life, and making sure that it works for each other.
So how would you say you communicate future plans
Clearly before
marriage?
If I was to be completely honest with you guys, I don't think that we did.
Okay.
And I think it's because of how young we were.
Right.
And so that's the advantage to getting married when you're a little older, because then you know you've lived a life a little bit, so you know what plans you want, and you know what you want. I was still trying to figure out who I was when we got married and finding out who this version of me is. But I think the plans clearly before marriage, I think we just wanted to get married and we both wanted to move out of our parents' house. So we were clear on that.
Right.
But outside of that, we really were too young to. But if there's somebody listening to this and they were younger or older, I would strongly recommend doing a vision board for your marriage. Not for the wedding,
For the marriage.
for the
Right.
marriage.
Right.
What do you see? That's a great exercise.
That's really
That's
great.
good. That's good. So, do you get along with in-laws?
I love them.
Okay. Okay. What about you?
Same.
Okay.
Same. We're one big happy family.
Everybody talks about that a lot, but I was really, really blessed.
Good.
It's like a second mom and dad.
So, like, what advice would you give to like merge families?
I would say establish boundaries first, right? You have to establish your own norms. What's going to be your family traditions, right? And understanding that if it looks a little different than what you've normally had, that's okay, as long as you two agree on it and it's mutually respectful, right? So if you know that your spouse is big on family, like Jess knows I'm big on family. If she was like, well, I don't care, I'm not going to nothing. You know what I mean? Like that's,
That
you
wouldn't
know,
work.
now I would have to concede on some of those, but I would hope that she would as well.
Right.
So there's a mutual respect that has to be there for each person. But I think the first thing you got to do is you got to set boundaries, and then you have to stick to those boundaries when you're dealing with your, extended family now. And you gotta, it should be a united front.
front, because if they'll knock down one, they'll mess you up. You gotta be on the same page.
Yes. I like that.
All right, so you mentioned your son earlier. How did y'all come to the decision to have children, and did it change like the marriage? Or
We
how did
didn't.
it change?
She couldn't keep her hands off. She couldn't keep Chris.
Yeah,
She couldn't keep her hands off.
really,
Chris.
really, Kevin.
I was telling her, listen, I gotta go pray.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Well, turn the mic.
That's my guy right now.
We got to turn the mics off and tell the truth.
What you doing? I'm praying. What you doing?
Oh my god.
That was good.
We always wanted children.
We wanted children, but we, believe it or not, we never planned. We never planned.
We
for
had the
them.
plan to wait 5 years. We wanted to travel. We wanted to like be married. We wanted to, year one. At the end of year one, I was pregnant. So I was like, our plans. I remember I was sitting in the doctor's office. I started crying, and she was like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "This is not supposed to happen yet." And I think that we this was a great decision we made. This we never wanted. I think we said we wanted 2. Got 4.
Oh, you guys have 4.
We got 4 kids. Yeah.
What do you guys have?
Eyes, look at her eyes. She's like, what?
Okay, we got a 17-year-old daughter.
She's about to be 18.
We got a 16-year-old daughter. We got a 14-year-old son, and we got an 11-year-old daughter.
Going on 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we in the thick of it.
Teens.
Teens, yeah.
All right, so do you agree on ways to parent your kids? If not, then how did you overcome that?
I think for the most part we do, right? We have some differences. Like I am very patient. Like I'm willing to listen to the story, right? because I want my punishment to be fair. Right, so I'm listening, and I'm like, okay, now say that again. Now I want to make sure, because don't have me going to the school, you know what I mean, acting a fool, and then they give me a part of the story I didn't know,
Tell the truth.
So in that regard, Jess is a little bit more. Her upbringing was a little bit more strict.
You don't got words.
Her father's a military guy, so it wasn't a lot of that back and forth. So we'll be sitting there, and she'll stay in for round 1, round 2. Then she's like, y'all still talking about this? So I think for the most part we do parent equally, but any areas that we differ on, we don't differ in front of the kids on. Okay, so we're very big on that. We'll wait, and if she feels really strongly about something, especially as it pertains to the girls, then and they'll try it. They'll be like, Dad, what if I'm like, no, listen, your mother said this, and then when they leave, I'll be like, I don't necessarily agree with what you just said or what you did, but I'm not gonna do that in front of them, right? And same thing with her. She'll let me say my piece, and then we go upstairs, and she's like, you know what? I think you could have said that a little nicer, But yeah, we make sure that we provide a united front. We're not gonna let the kids ruin us, and we're not gonna let them think that they can, get to dad or get to mom, because they're gonna try it. They're gonna try it.
So how should one balance marriage, children, work life? How do you balance all that?
Yeah, we don't use the word balance.
Yeah, balance is hard.
Balance anything is hard. We like to, and maybe it's just semantics for some people, but when we think about trying to juggle these three, it's more like harmony. You have different notes on different lines, and the way we like to look at it is sometimes we might need to be more of a spouse today than a parent. Sometimes that role might require more, or maybe Kevin has a really hard day, so he's going to be more a broker than he is probably going to be dad and spouse. Not that he's not at all, but different roles might require more of him, vice versa. So I think that it's really kind of like ebb and flowing with what's happening, and we try not to put too much pressure on balancing as long as we're paying attention to all of the different pieces that's moving in our lives. Right. And that's how we like to kind of roll. Less pressure, less stress.
Yeah, that balancing thing is tough, right? Because balance means is equal on each side, and it's not going to always be. There's going to be seasons where it's a lot of, like right now we're in the season, we got teenagers, so it's a lot of, hey, I want to go here with my friends, I want to go to this game, I want, and so we're Uber drivers, so that's the season we're in. So it's the harmony that we've developed where we have a mutual understanding of where we're at, and then trying to make that work.
So like with everything that you have going on, how do you have me time? Do you feel like you have me time? Yeah, do you still hang out with friends? Like, how do you, I don't want to say balance. How do you incorporate all of it?
I encourage Kevin. Listen, you got to be an individual, because I always tell people, like, this, your half and my half makes a whole. I don't subscribe to that. We two wholes coming together. I don't need a half of a man, right? And he doesn't need half of a woman. So a part of you being whole is you going and you being an individual too. So Kevin does his 7 o'clock golf meetings with guys. By all means, I think it's important for him and I to do things separately, because we spend a lot of time together, and that individuality is important.
Kev, man, you Tiger Woods out there?
No, I'm like Tiger Good. I'll be out there digging up dirt. But I love the game, though. I love the game.
He's better. He's being modest. He's better than that.
All right, so I think we're gonna go into the next topic, finances. You guys kind of talked about this before, but how financially ready were you before marriage and children? And do you have to have it all together when you get married? For the ones listening.
So I'll start with the second question. No, you don't have to have it all, but you should have a plan.
Okay.
All right. So you're I don't think you're ever going to have it all together, right? But there should be a plan, and there should be a contingency plan in case plan A don't work, right? So I to answer that question, no, I don't think you have to have it all before you come together. As it pertains to us, we were not financially. I don't think we were really financially ready. When we got married, I had just got into my career. I just started working in the area of finance, and she had just started working in counseling. And so, our incomes was low. I remember we went to H&R Block to do our taxes. And this lady literally looked at us and said, "How are y'all living?" Oh,
Yeah, she was like, "How are y'all making it?"
she was like, how y'all
I
making
cried. I got in the
it?
car and cried.
Like,
That was rude,
The
though.
audacity.
Right.
That was crazy.
But we couldn't answer it.
God did.
Right? But especially in our household and in our culture, right? And I'm not gonna speak for every black household, but for most black household, finances are not taught. We just have learned behavior. And a lot of times we pick up on just things that we've heard. So it's like, hey, Dad, can I do this? Nah, we can't afford it. Or what do you think? Money grows on trees? Like, so we develop these habits and these financial scripts in our minds, right? By what we've learned, right? Through learned behavior. And so we brought a lot of that with us. And so I know for me, I was a survivor. So if the bill was due on the 15th, and I have 30 days after the 15th, I'm going to make sure the lights don't get cut off, but it'll get paid. Right. That's not how she was operating. With Jess, it was, if it's due the 15th, it should be paid on the 10th. You know what I mean? And so we had to learn how to put that all together.
I like that, Jess.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big thing. And then just, I always thought that once we got married, it was going to be our money.
I've grown and evolved.
Yeah. No, listen, we talked about change with different people now. But in year one.
Listen, I came from not knowing what paying bills was. My dad just kind of took care of everything. So I didn't
You're
have...
spoiled.
I was just taken care of, and financially, I didn't have I didn't have to survive, thrive. I didn't do anything. I just kind of like paid my little gas bill and made sure it was filled in the car, and that was it. And I remember Kevin came home. This is after we came home from the honeymoon, and I guess we got some bills in the mail while we were gone. So he was like, "I need your check," and I said, "Why?" And he was like, "We got to pay bills." I said, "You need my check too?" That's how ignorant I was to paying bills. So that was like my first whoa, this is real life. And it was scary for me. So I don't, like Kevin said, you don't have to have it together, but you definitely need a plan. You need to talk about it for sure.
I think a plan is like on spending too. Like it's the simple things, right? So I was, she was in school, but I wasn't really in school. I was living still at home, but I had a full-time job. I was doing my own thing. So I know one of the things that we had to agree on was on what's a major purchase, what's the dollar amount for a major purchase. Because we got married. I bought I'm dating ourselves now, 6-disc CD changer for the living room, right? And I'm thinking she's gonna love this because now we got this system in the house. And only thing she was like, well, how much you pay for that, right? And so that was something that I had to learn before I make a major purchase. We need to talk about that, and then even how do we loan out money because family, friends start asking, and so we had to put almost like a policies and procedures in place for our own household.
Yes.
So I'll ask this next question. Like, I don't know if y'all on social media heavy, but it was like a lot of girls was coming on like, oh, the man got to pay all the bills. And I just, and you kind of touched on it. How do you feel about the 50-50 splitting the bills? What would you say to these younger females or males when they're thinking about getting into marriage or dating, going into it
I'll be honest with you, and I'm not knocking anybody who splits all the bills down the middle. You got to pay your half this month. I just don't. I don't know if it's because of the length of time we've been married, but it's our mortgage. It's our light bill. And this 50-50, it's like, okay, I just put my money into the joint that I contribute each month, and then Kevin or I will just pay out the bills with our money. And this 50-50 thing, I think it causes division personally. Because you don't got your half, so I ain't talking to you for the rest of the night. Now here we go again. You late on your half. Like, what? That doesn't even sound like a married couple. That sound like roommates to me. Yeah. So. But I ain't knocking nobody who go 50-50. You could do it best for your household. That might work,
Right.
Well, you kind of talked about this, but joint accounts versus single accounts. When you're married, should you have a joint account? Should you just have a single account? Like, how does that work?
The money just go into one account.
Right.
So, I know for us, we have a joint account, and then we have our individual accounts, right? And then we have a certain amount that we allocate towards the joint that takes care of the household. But we're still individuals, right? So, I still may want to go and buy a shirt or sneakers or whatever, or go golfing, and I don't want to have to pull from the household account to do that. So as long as the financials of the house are taken care of, then we're good. So we each have our we maintain our individuality, right? I think sometimes there's this misconception that when you get married, you lose that, and you don't have to, but that was something that we discussed. So we have both. We have our joint account, and then we have our individual accounts, right? I don't, especially, birthdays, anniversaries, I pull from my individual account and surprise her.
All right. Spenders versus savers. Why is finances one of the leading causes of divorce?
I personally think it's not the finances. I think it's a lack of a conversation about the finances. So everybody said, "Oh, it's the finances," but we talked about it. And there's a lot of financial patterns, like Kevin was talking about, the financial scripts that people have grown up with or have, utilized that don't work when you get in a marriage. Right. So the lack of the communication regarding those things causes the divorce.
That's good.
All right. So what type of financial advice would you give our listeners? Things you do or what you wish you had done?
I wish I would have been honest. So I was told before I got married to hide as much money as you can because he's going to spend it. That person loves me. I ain't going to disclose who they are. So I would hide money. And I still have to fight from doing that. And it's not because there's a lack of, it's just been a negative pattern of behavior that I've developed. So I had to really, come clean with my, accounts here and accounts there, accounts everywhere. And but he's very aware. You're like, why are you making an extra stop? I'm going to deposit some money into another account. But those days are over. And, when we first got married, I would stick money in socks. But I'm delivered. So I wish I would have been more forthcoming and honest with my fear surrounding money, because we could have talked about it and we could have developed a plan. Right. But I was thinking, let me just squirrel away as much as I can in case something, goes wrong. And I just went about it. So try to be honest about your feelings about money. That's what I wish I would have done. I just didn't know any different.
Yeah, I think we talk about trauma in a lot of different areas. We don't talk about financial trauma. Yeah. And a lot of people have financial trauma.
Yeah.
And so
Me.
So I think it's something that we need to discuss and talk about, right? And you have to it's a subject you have to be honest about. You got to be honest about your finances. You got to be honest about your credit. What are your spending habits? Are you a spender? Are you a saver? What's your risk tolerance? You know what I mean? Are you willing to invest? And if so, at what level are you willing to do that? Right. So I think those are all the things that you just have to be vulnerable with. Finances is a vulnerable thing, right? And it's a very sensitive thing, and it really it's emotional, right? And if you don't believe that, lend somebody some money and then don't have them, don't pay you. You be all in your feelings.
But that's where a lot of arguments come, because instead of really hitting the problem, you're really just trauma responding. Right. So, if somebody comes and they don't bring their half of the money, and then you're like, well, how are we supposed to pay this? And then all of a sudden you're like, you start doing things that hurts the relationship because you're responding to the trauma of the lack of the finances rather than really just addressing the issue. You start shutting people down, you start icing them out, isolate, it's just really bad. And so it's very important to talk about your fears surrounding money, and if there has been financial trauma, then talking about that. What is your biggest fear? What's going on?
Right. And set your. We talked about boundaries. Set the boundaries for what the finance is going to look like as it pertains to, again, helping out others. Right. So a lot of us, we have family members, and we always want to be in position to help, but not at the detriment of your own household. Right. I mean, even the Bible talks about not being a cosigner. Right. Why would you give up your bed for somebody else's, debt? And so, people don't even know that scripture is in there, but we've been in situations where we've loaned people money that we did not have, but just out of a love and a need to feel like, okay, we need to help them out, and then find out the individual's on vacation and they're
scrolling. You're like, whoa. You're like, oh, you could have bought that TV, but
you still owe me, right? You know what I mean?
Disney World.
Wow.
And you never want we never want to break or sever a relationship over money, right? So what we did was we put some policies in place, right? If somebody asks us for money, the first thing we do is say, listen, if you ask me, the first thing I'm going to say is, well, listen, let me talk to Jess. That right there uses, you know what? I'll work it out. I'll figure it out, right? And she does the same thing. So we come, I'll let you know, my wife is going to know about this ask, right? And then we have a dollar amount. We don't lend over a certain dollar amount without the other person knowing, right? And typically we have we call our Cash App account like the petty cash account. If it ain't in my Cash App, I ain't got it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I'm not gonna put my household in a situation where now we're looking for this money. And so what we've learned to do is become resources without actually lending money. So if you need help in this area, we got different resources that we can help you out. So it's not like we're just going to leave you out there stranded, but it doesn't have to be our dollar that's helping out. And that has saved us. Because the truth of the matter is, it's never a stranger coming to ask for money.
People you love.
It's the family and the friend. And it's hard to say no, right? Especially if you've been in that habit prior to the relationship. If you got that brother, that cousin that always, you always looking them out, and now you married, and then they hit you with, ever since you hooked up with homegirl, ever since you hooked up with this dude. No, you're right. I'm married now. My responsibilities have changed.
And if you're lending money, this is why I would tell, especially new couples, if you're lending money and you need that money, and you can't do without it, then you don't have money to lend.
Right. Don't do it.
So when we lend money, we're like, all right, if they give it back, they give it back. If they don't, they don't. And that's after we made a decision that we both gonna lend it. So now it's not a stress, it's not a pressure. Like, oh snap, they always give us our money back. So now when they come back the fourth time, they're like, yeah, we have no problem because that person always pays us back, but we never look to get it back.
All right, so what type of advice would you give a married couple that's trying to start a business or even maintain a business?
Count the costs. You cannot have a business and not know math. You just can't. I think that starting a business, depending on what type of business, you need to identify all the resources you're going to need and really talk to people in the industry that are doing what you want to do first. And then go into seeing what resources you have that you can start the business. When Kevin and I started our, my private practice, I had left full-time work, and we started our private practice with $40. This really nice guy gave us a building in the middle of the city, and he was like, just pay me $40. We already had computer paper at home, so I just printed off some brochures. And my first day, I made $150. Wow. Now that was.
And where we go?
We went to Wendy's.
We went to Wendy's.
Oh my gosh. And that was me really undercharging that person. But we made, $150 on our first day open. So we had in our mind how much we could spend, and we knew we needed help. So it goes back to you saying, don't be afraid to ask for help. But sometimes if your business can operate out of your home, humble beginnings, God will blow your mind with what he could do if you stay faithful to your dream.
I mean, the Bible says, do not despise the day of small beginnings, right? So everybody starts off somewhere, right? And it's being humble in that beginning stage and not overextending yourself so that the vision can't continue. A lot of times you start a business and without counting the cost, you're doing this, you're going big, and now the vision can't extend because you've overextended yourself. So counting the cost, I think, is one of the biggest lessons we've learned in going into business.
There's one more piece I would tell, like a couple who's going into business together or somebody, I would say, let your business tell you what it needs. So what I mean by that is like, okay, so let's say you're starting and everything is like virtual. And you're like, you know what? We want an office space because we want to invite people here. Okay, what is the office space? What is that serve? How is that serving you? Is it because you have so many clientele coming through those doors that you need a space for them to go? Is your business so like your business will say, hey, this is becoming like, for example, your podcast, you might say, wow, this podcast, there's so many people wanting more of us. And you'll know because you get the comments, you'll get people reaching out, emails, and then it starts to grow to the point you're like, we can't handle the day-to-day of answering these emails. And so what is your business telling? Your business is saying, y'all need a virtual admin. So the business has a way of speaking to you if you're listening. But a lot of times people waste money and they have to close the business because they jump before the business speaks.
Oh, yeah.
So I would say, to any couple getting into business, this is a big thing Kevin and I learned, is let your business tell you how it will tell you what it needs. But listen to it.
Gotcha.
All right, let's talk about let's get into the ministries. How's that going?
Ministry's going great. It's something that we're very passionate about. One of the things that we love with ministry is we're always looking to bridge the gap between theology and psychology, right? And so the area that we're in ministry, we're always looking to be of help and service, specifically in this area of mental health and awareness, right? So I'm a licensed minister, and Jessica is a newly licensed minister, and we're doing this thing together, and it's been fantastic.
That's good.
That's awesome.
That's good.
That's right.
How can people get in touch with you?
They can email us. I guess the best email would be admin@betterlifeoptions.org.
Okay. Nice.
And I know Chris said you guys have a couple books out. What inspired your books? You have 3 books, or is it 2 books?
We have 3. So we lost our first son. And so out of that, we wrote, well, mainly Jessica wrote. I have like a small portion in there, but it's called Invisible Tears. But God restored. Like I said, we lost our first son, and then we got 4 children. And actually, our oldest daughter was born almost a year to the date of that that incident happened. So God is amazing. And then we wrote a book called 13 Positions of Love. I Still Do. And we wrote that in our 13th year of marriage, and really talking about being in the position of love, the posture of love, what that looks like. And we took 13 things that we've learned over the course of our marriage at that time, and we put it in book form. But the one that we're probably the most passionate about is the last book that we've written. It's called Christpreneur. It's a 31-day devotional for entrepreneurs.
Oh, wow.
And so that book, it was birthed out of COVID.
Pandemic, quarantine.
Right? And because we were, we had to revamp,
Pivot.
everything with the pandemic and being home. And we were like, man, it would be amazing if people understood that God really wants you to be successful. And so the premise of the book is God speaking to you as the CEO, right? And so each chapter is God telling you something about the business. And then there's space in there for you to journal. There's prayers in there. There's scripture references in there. And then we even have a member of the John Maxwell leadership team that has affirmations throughout the book as well. So that's probably our biggest passion project. And then we have an upcoming project that we're working on with another couple that's going to be kind of like a marriage workbook. And that one is going to be titled Marriage on the Rock. So a lot of marriages are on the rocks, right? But if you put your marriage on the rock, which is Jesus Christ, then we know it can be a successful marriage.
That's right.
Nice. And where can we find those books at?
So they're on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all on Amazon.
Nice.
That's good.
Make a purchase.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Is there anything that y'all want to share with the listeners? Any advice, any gems, closing gems you want to drop for us?
I think what I will say is, although marriage is hard and it requires work, it's worth it. I don't know any other relationship or that becomes a joint venture where the ROI is beyond what you ever put in. So I would strongly recommend it if it's something that anybody's thinking about doing, because the benefits go above and beyond what you have to sacrifice.
Yeah, and I would say, like I mentioned, the Bible said, "He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord." Right, and so there's a certain favor. That favor is different than other types of favor. There's a favor when joint minds, right? Because the marriage is the only relationship that mimics the Trinity in the fact that there's multiple entities, but they're operating in one purpose. And so, anybody that's looking to get married, or if you are married, is understanding that you guys are one in purpose, right? There's a greater purpose for what we are called to do. And the math is different in the kingdom, right? So if one could chase 1,000, two can chase 10,000, that's not natural math. And so it's understanding that together, there's so many greater things that we can do. And the biggest thing the enemy wants to do is to separate us so that you're only getting 1,000. He's fine with the 1,000. But what God wants is the 10,000, right? Absolutely. And so when you understand that, understand the purpose of why is Kevin with Jessica? Why is Jessica with Kevin? It goes greater and beyond just us, right? But it's now your seed. It's those people that you come in contact with, right? Sometimes you're the only Bible people will read. You're the only church people are going to attend, right? And so when they see your relationship and they understand the love that you have for each other, and it's mirroring the love that God has, that's the purpose, right? That we want to show. So, I think marriage is for champions. Marriage is not for the weak, and it's a great thing. And I'm so happy that. And listen, you got to get the right one. Like you got to get the right one. But I'll say this lastly. God can restore anything. Even if you think maybe it's not the right one, God is big on covenant. So if you made a covenant with this person, God can do things that you never thought could be done. He could fix broken relationships. He can heal broken hearts. He can heal and bring peace, right? There's so many things that God can do in your marriage if you allow him to. You just got to allow him to do it. So, yeah, maybe you think maybe you didn't get the right one. You're thinking, man, I didn't get the right one.
Your marriage not happy.
But it doesn't mean that God can't restore and do things in your marriage and bring you guys together where now, from moving forward from this point, now you can fulfill his purpose.
That's good. That's
Definitely.
That's good.
Man, it's
Thank
been a
you.
blessing, man. It's been a blessing.
Thank you.
Have y'all on the podcast, man, for real. It's good seeing y'all.
Same.
Y'all too.
All right, listeners, y'all know what to do. If you got any questions, comment below, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on all your favorite platforms as far as social media. And remember,
The wedding is only the beginning.